everybody. My name is Oliver Schmidtke. I'm the Director of the Center for Global Studies here at UVic, and I would like to welcome you very warmly to this very special evening celebrating Bud's 80th birthday. And before, as a start to the evening, I would like to introduce Lorna Williams and Priska Rorik to you, who will welcome us to the territory in a moment. I'm not sure that Lorna really needs much of an introduction in this room here, but just a couple of words. Lorna Williams is Professor Emerita of Indigenous Education, Curriculum and Instruction at UVic, and Canada Research Chair in Education and Linguistics. And her entire career has been dedicated to advancing the education and language development in the curriculum, and she's been driven by the idea that any proper education for Indigenous people needs to have a special linguistic and cultural component next to the Western education that we normally provide. So with this, very close to Bud's ideas about what an education can be. So Lorna, welcome tonight. And Priska Rorik has created a First Nations woman and a founding member of the grassroots organization Hespered Language Program. And in this program, she works with 8 people who master this language to try to pass it on to as many people as possible. And at the same time, while doing this amazing work of passing on the language and teaching it, she also pursues a PhD at the University of Victoria on language revitalization and an educational degree at UVic. So with this, I would like to welcome you to the podium, and please, if you're...
Kukstum kapapa, kukstum kalab, kalab الجاونة movement ولا الجاونة تدميخشة كلا قننا سكواي مالكم كسانكيز ونوستا نشكواتشيشة الكل الوقت أولى شواش نشنقنوقة تلاقوش تلاقن الجاونة تدميخشة. It's a real honor for me. My name is Wanosa Lorna Williams. I'm Lidwat Ul. And I say this and introduce myself not just to you, but to the land on which we meet. The lands on which we meet are the lands of the Lakwanan speaking people, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. And they had villages all along here. And so their stories, their songs are part of this land. And it's really important for us to realize that, to know that, to acknowledge that. And so I want you right now to sit quiet, close your eyes, and I want you to think about the lands upon which your people came. I want you to visualize those lands in your mind and to say to the land here, this is where I've come from. And I come in a good way. And I'm here in gratitude and to this gathering. Thank you. And it's really important that we realize that we come from a long line of ancestors, and we come from the land, just as the indigenous peoples of this place. And I've asked Chutska to sing a song for us, because it is a way in which it makes our spirits flow together. เสียงคือใครช่วยนะคะ
So, also on behalf of the Center for Global Studies that has been proud to co-sponsor this event, I would like to welcome you and underline how privileged we feel at the center to have Bud in his chair teaching us ways of thinking creatively about community-based research, to share his passion over the years, and to open up the doors to the enormous circle or network of people he has all over the world, from community leaders, scholars, activists, and he has in a way opened the door for us to understand academia and what it can do in very different ways. And I think we must have met 20 years ago, Bud, and gradually I've come accustomed to what you're doing, and you shared so generously your knowledge and also the events that I could attend, and gradually it dawned on me, watching you over the years, how transformative and, in the best sense of the meaning, radical your approach to thinking about knowledge is. It sounds like an easy thing to do, to democratize knowledge, but if you think through the implication, what this actually means on the ground, and I've seen so many examples to both intellectually, but also hands-on working in the community and with the community, what this could do. So if you feel passionately about academia and pushing the university towards what it could be and should be, I think this is your event, and I can't really think of a better way to also support new and innovative ways of considering how we can empower communities with the knowledge that we have at the university, and also the privilege that we have working on such a wonderful place, that to support the Knowledge for Change and the Community Scholars Fund that we're celebrating tonight. So in this respect, Bud, my happy birthday to you comes with a great degree of thanks for your work and your passion that you've brought to the center. So thank you also for bringing us all together tonight. Now I have the privilege to introduce Bud's companion and partner in crime, so to speak, and co-chair of the UNESCO chain Community-Based Research and Social Responsibility in Higher Education, Rajesh Tandon. And Rajesh came for this event all the way from Delhi in India. And many of you will know Rajesh already. He's a true champion and probably most talented practitioner of participatory research. He's known as a founding father of participatory research. He founded the Society for Participatory Research in Asia, PRIA, in 1982, some time ago, and he's still leading it as the chief functionary of this organization. He's also the chairperson of the Global Alliance on Community Engaged Research. And in 2011, he was inducted into the International Adult and Continuing Education Hall of Fame. So, if this is not and to this point, we've raised $73,045. So, wonderful fundraisers, but also what a worthy cause. When we started, I said 100,000 is too high a goal, but it seems. But we might be getting there. Yeah. So, well done.
And welcome all of you. I encountered Bud Hall 45 years ago in October in 1978, and we have remained friends since then, and he has even reached that number 80. So happy birthday to you, Bud. Great to be here on this occasion. We are very privileged to have Dr. Lorna Williams with us. When Bud moved to Victoria, because of our long relationship, I discovered this part of Canada. And those of you who have been around in Victoria, you may have noticed me more often in this part of the world. But the work of indigenous communities and indigenous knowledge and indigenous education, so powerful and strong here that I learned a great deal, continue to learn and take it in our own work as UNESCO chair. Somewhere in this last 20 plus years, I invited Dr. Lorna Williams to be my spiritual guru in this regard. And before we proceed further, I'm going to request her to say a few words as to why we have gathered here today. Lorna.
We started this evening in a very traditional way, with an acknowledgement and an introduction of ourselves to the land, and with a beautiful, beautiful song to open our minds, our hearts, and our spirits, so that it flows amongst us. And in our culture, in my culture, and I want to thank you, Bud, for making this happen. That when we gather, and I explained this to Bud in one of my courses, that when we gather, we spend time talking about why it is we've come together. And we put this in our center. So in the middle of this room, I want you to picture the words that each person has already contributed to shape the ideas. And when we leave later today, this evening, that we'll take with us, each of us, something that we have built together by putting our minds, our hearts, and our spirits, our words together. So this evening is devoted to the celebration of our friend. 80 years, that's a long time. And Bud has devoted most of those 80 years to the work of bringing people together. And that work needs to continue. And so the scholarship fund, the Scholars Fund that is being put together will do just that. It's Bud has brought all of you into this room because you've all been part, every one of you. You have all been part of bringing knowledges, wisdoms, stories, songs, understandings to one another. And that's what higher ed is supposed to do. And so, in a sense, we're just making happen through the work of Bud and all of us. We're just making that finally happen, that everyone's knowledge and wisdom can be shared and we can learn from it. The animals need it. The plants need it. They need to know that we can, as humans, step aside and to learn from them and to let them know, teach us what it is we need in order to be able to continue on this beautiful, beautiful earth. And we can only do it by listening to one another, by being open to one another, and having the courage to open those doors to one another. I met Bud more than 20 years ago. Now, a little bit more than 20 years. And one of the gifts in my life, and I can see in many people's lives, is to have benefited and to be grateful to have benefited from what he's learned from elders around the world because of his openness to learning, but also the courage that he has to be able to help people to walk through doors that they're not accustomed to. And it's your gift, Bud, that has made such a big difference in the lives of people in communities, of Indigenous people in particular, to young people around the world. And so we're here tonight to celebrate this and to think about it, to share with one another those stories. Because each of you has a story to tell. And we need to be able to listen to one another. So that's what I invite for tonight, is happy listening. Kukshukada.
What we thought we will spend a little bit of time this evening in is how we reached here and why it matters, what Lorna just said in terms of valuing, respecting, listening to various different ways in which people learn, know, and use that learning to improve their situations around the world. When we began our work, Bud was in International Council for Adult Education, Toronto, so I discovered Toronto. I started visiting Toronto. And the network of participatory research in late 70s just was getting started. Several of you in this room I can see who have been associated with it, contributed to it. Ted Jackson is here, who was part of that Big Trout Lake program. I was working in rural parts of India, and Bud had just returned from Tanzania. The ideas about knowledge as a process of learning and empowerment for communities who had hitherto felt excluded, that idea began to emerge in late 70s and early 80s. And a network of participatory research began to get established around the world. In those days, much of the practice of this work was happening in communities, with communities, and we respected the lived experience of communities as a starting point. But this work was not readily, openly listened to or accepted in the spirit, as Lorna described, in the academic world. Despite the fact that people like Bud and Ted and I and some others had impeccable academic qualifications, we were not treated with respect. And then, around the time Bud moved here in Victoria, around the time the new millennium, around the time the waves of indigenous assertion began, not only in Western Canada but around the world, the openness in the academic world to these different ways of knowing began to emerge. And it is in that occasion, in 2008, here in Victoria, in University of Victoria's auspices, and several of you are around here who were part of that in that moment, when a coalition of practitioners from the community and academics came together to create a network which, as Oliver mentioned, was called Global Alliance for Community Engaged Research, as well as Community-Based Research Canada. And Global Alliance and Community-Based Research in 2009 encountered UNESCO's Higher Education Conference, and in the process discovered that even UNESCO's thinking was moving towards acknowledging indigenous knowledge, experiential knowledge, lived experience, and appealing to higher education to become socially responsible. And it is in that moment that we were invited to consider becoming UNESCO chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. When Bud and I began to talk about this, we said we can't be a UNESCO chair only in academia, as most UNESCO chairs before us were. So we proposed to UNESCO a two-legged chair. Academic leg here in Victoria, in University of Victoria, and a practitioner leg there in Delhi with Priya, where I was. So we are the first two-legged UNESCO chair. And therefore we have invented co-chair as a label for ourselves. We discovered last year, when 30th anniversary of UNESCO chairs was taking place in Paris, the Unit Twin Network last November, we discovered that after us, 7 or 8 other co-chairs have emerged, and we are happy to contribute to yet another movement of democratizing knowledge. It is in the course of our work in the last 10, 12 years, and more so through the studies that we were conducting as UNESCO chair, including the studies in which colleagues like Walter Lepore and Catherine Maskey and Barbara Jenny, several of you present here have supported. In those studies, we began to really understand that there is a world of community knowledge which cannot be just explained through the newly popular art of co-construction. The co-construction movement began around the turn of the millennium in academic centers, and that movement implied that academics went out and worked with communities. But they assumed that communities had understood knowledge in the same way as academics did. And so in our work, we began to discover that the contextual, experiential, culturally located, linguistically appropriate, context-specific community knowledge varies greatly from the standard universal academic knowledge culture. And in that discovery, we became emboldened to say that the future of our planet, in the face of all the devastation we are causing, the future of our planet depends on a movement of knowledge democracy. Because with knowledge democracy, we begin to respect and value different forms and manifestations of knowledge, rooted in different worldviews and normative, value-based spiritual considerations. So from that movement, we began to create an opportunity for next generation of practitioners and researchers to learn about this way of building capacity to produce, co-produce actionable, usable, contextually place-based, appropriate knowledge. And this is that network which we call Knowledge for Change. And its K4C is a contribution of several of you sitting in this hall, and thank you for that. So we began this in 2018, and over these 5 years, despite the pandemic break, we have had the privilege to train 150 mentors around the world, and there are now 25 Knowledge for Change hubs in 15 countries. We are very fortunate, and I consider myself privileged that we have been able to work together with such a diverse but committed group of scholars and practitioners in building this movement. So we thought that this evening, for those of you who have not been a close part of this movement, but also for us to refresh ourselves on this auspicious occasion of Bert's 80th birthday, that we will have a little flavor of what the community knowledge and community knowledge workers means in practice. So we are privileged to have with us 3 of our panelists who will share their stories. You have already met the one from Vancouver Island, Chuska, and may I invite you to join us. But we also have Alfonso Bosagomba, who has come initially from Burundi via Limerick in Ireland, more recently in Toronto, today in Victoria. Alfonso, please join us here in the panel. Alfonso went through our 4th cohort in this K4C mentor training program. But we even have an earlier cohort representative, Nakada Mercy from Kenya, who was in the 3rd cohort, and she has joined a doctoral program in University of West Virginia, but still had to travel to Victoria to be part of the panel. So may I invite 3 of you to come and join me here and share your stories with our colleagues here in a way that we can move on to activities like dancing quickly. No pressure. So I'm going to ask you all, one by one, tell a story about your knowledge work in the context in which you were working, are working, and the story about how do you understood or experienced community knowledge while you were doing the work that you were doing or are doing wherever you are. So may I start with you?
Hello everybody. My name is Nkatha, but if you ask my people to say my name, they will tell you Nkatha. And this is important. I am named by and after my grandma. Ordinarily, my people would take about 40 days before they name a child. And this comes from a place of understanding that to name is to create. Nkatha means one who lacks for nothing. It means beautiful. It means hardworking. It means respect. It means graceful and independent. It also means prudent. In naming me, my people are doing three things. They are calling me, they are telling the world what to expect of me. They are calling me into these things. And they are urging those that have gone ahead of me to make it so. And so my name tasks me with responsibility for those that have gone ahead of me. Responsibility for and of myself. Responsibilities to others in the present. And responsibility to those that will come after me. So why does any of this matter? In responding to the question of community knowledge. For two things, at least so far as I can tell. It demonstrates the value of context and situatedness, and it also demonstrates our value system. Without me having said any of the things that my name means, and therefore what my name implies for my being in the world, perhaps none of this would have been apparent to us in the room. So, it tasks me with things. It tells the world what to expect of me. And if you put me, you drop me amongst my people, and my people ask me, what is your name? And I say to them, my name is Nkatha. Without question, they know what that means. But they only know because the context in which I happen to be at that time allows them to understand my name. It also shows that my people value these things. They value respect, they value hard work, they value beauty, and they value careful thought before action. Now, if we understand a contextual value system to be premised on shared norms and lived experiences that derives from a direct use or interaction with resources, whether those resources are environmental or social, then we see community knowledge as being a very powerful tool to inform place-based solutions to major societal challenges, not least being the issue of global climate change. My name is Nkatha.
Thank you. Thank you, Nkatha, and for me to understand what it means, I must travel that journey with you to your place.
Very welcome.
Let me invite Trista to share your ways of understanding community knowledge.
True. So let's go to High Square, which is in the very middle of the west coast of Vancouver Island that we're on here. And what I'm really invested in the last decade and more is becoming more fluent in my Heshkut language. So I grew up in my Heshkut community, however, none of us grew up to be fluent in our language. So what I thought of to share was a story of youth, and youth is a word in our language that also is tied to a place that is well known today, and a people called Ukluislat, sometimes called Uklulit, Yuki, very famous place on our island. Youth. Youth is the root of that meaning, and a youth is really important. Every place that you go on our coast, on our west coast, you're arriving there from the water, and you're looking for the youth. And if it's your home territory, you know exactly where the youths are, and depending on what the conditions on the water are and the tide, you know which youth you're going to approach to pull your canoe up the beach. So imagine for a minute here that you all are tiny boulders on the beach, and this is the forest behind me. I'm just at the high tide mark. I'm looking at the low tide and eating a fish sandwich, and I'm looking at all you little boulders, and I'm thinking, that's a really nice boulder with the pink on it over there. It's really nice, and admire the glinting of the sun off all of you beautiful boulders. And my dad's there. He's a residential school survivor, so he grew up in a little place called Christie Residential School. He wasn't able to be a speaker of his language, and so he was there. He was eating a fish sandwich, and he looked down the beach and he said, "You know, if you just moved 4 rocks a day, you could have a youth." And I was like, okay. So I put down my fish sandwich and I moved a few rocks, and I was like, this is pretty fun actually. So just kept doing it, moving them over, using leverage, picking them up, moving them over a little bit, trying to make a straight path through the little boulders down the beach, so that at any tide, the lowest tide, at this time I wasn't thinking of tides, but what I learned was that when everybody started joining in and we worked on that youth together, we reached the water that night. He was gone, he was long gone, and we finished and we said, yeah, hooray! We were howling like wolves, we were jumping for joy. We were like, we made a youth, yeah! This is an ancestral, this is just a byproduct of the reason why we came out here. We came out here to speak our language and do 100 hours of Heshkut language practice together on Heshkut land, in the Heshkut places, the place that's always nurtured our language and has always been connected to that place. But we celebrated, we went to bed in our tents, and we were also bragging to each other. We're like, oh, when he shows up tomorrow, he's just gonna paddle in smoothly, and he's gonna walk right straight up the beach, just relaxed, and he doesn't have to watch us step or anything because we have a youth. And then the next morning it was time to get up, got out of the tent, went to have a look. Tide was about way further down, and there was no youth at the end where the tide was out anymore. So we learned something about the way that a youth is comprised of more than just one tide's worth of work. and the fact that we hadn't in any of our lifetimes, a group of us who spanned from the age of 13 to 71 maybe, that none of us had seen anybody create a new youth, because our youths are so long lasting. If you make a youth, it's going to be there for a long time, and you're going to be walking in the same places as your ancestors for a long, long time, because that youth will be there for you. That's my story about youth.
It's the recognition that we walk our path that our ancestors walked for a long, long time, which is the strength of your experience. Alphonse, your part of the world and your story.
Thank you very much. First of all, before I start to talk, I want to take this occasion and congratulate God for his birthday. And again, this day should be for you. And I I don't feel well that I will take some minute talking about myself, because that's what I'm asking, is it? But I think that it's you, Bob, you are bigger than just the birthday. Accomplishment. I mean, I know that you have friends and family, and I'm part of them, but I think that as well, because of what you did, that's why I have all those people here. But I'm gonna take some minutes just talk about myself. Okay, thank you. So, first of all, as Rajesh said, I came very, very far. I mean, I lived in Africa, I lived in Europe, now I'm in Canada as well. In some of those places, I went there because I wanted. In other, I didn't have no choice, I have to go there. So, in some places, I was privileged. In other places, it was not easy. But I think that all of that, it's made me, you see, today, it's that person who have been through all of that, and I'm glad I made it. Now, if I go back to where I started to get involved in this kind of participatory research, it was in Ireland in 2007. That was one of my part of my life where I was not privileged. I was very surviving, but I was there, and I was trying to do stuff around, because you see, I believe that even if you are not privileged, there is always somebody else who needs your help, and that was my philosophy. That I was doing. I was working as a volunteer in an organization, and then I heard that the University of Limerick, they wanted to do a kind of research. I have never done research before, never, but I understood that what they wanted to hear the voice of people who are affected by the issue. And I said, wow. I said that I want to be part of it, but not only I have no privilege, but I was double not privileged, because in Ireland they speak English. I was new there. I was speaking French, and my English was like for a baby. But I just threw myself in that organization. And when the University of Limerick, they came to see somebody who can be a liaison, I just went there. And some of my friends, they were laughing at me, because they're saying that you can't even speak English. How can you expect to get that job? And I was saying that, guys, you are not the one who gives the job, so let me just try to find something there. And I remember that one day when they asked me, when I was applying for that job, they asked me, so your level of English, how is it? And I said that very bad. But I say that, but I have read what you want. You want somebody who can bring people from migrant community. And some of those people, they don't speak English either. They're like me. But I say that, but at the same time, I speak Swahili, I speak French, I speak Russian. So by combining all of those, then I'm gonna get you people here. No, I was the first to be surprised, because I get that job. I got that job. And then I said that, now Alphonse, really, this is the chance. You have to show what you have inside. So I take the book, whatever what they said that what you have to do, and I read like you read the Bible. And really, I think that I did very, very good job. But what I understood as well, it was just in the beginning where universities want to work with people. That's what I just said. They want to work with people, but there was some steps they missed always. And for me, because I knew that I'm part of those migrant community, and if we do that research very well, because it was about discrimination, and we knew that if we can show that we are discriminated, something can change. Because at the same table, we have researchers, we have community groups, and we have policymakers as well. And we knew that something can change, because we have been talking a long time that something was wrong, but nobody listened to us. We knew that through the research, that can be now accepted. So I really worked very, very hard. But it was not easy. There are some stuff I want to share with people, but sometimes I couldn't, because I had on one side people from university who wanted to get things done well, but quickly as well, because they have, some math, whatever. I don't know how they designed that. We had people from community who want to be part of it, but if a child is sick or if there's some problem, they were not coming. So we have to postpone that. To make things worse, we had people who I don't know if you know the travelers, it's like what they call Zigan and Roma in Europe. So those people, they were part of it as well. So a death occurs in their community. And when somebody dies there, they stop working for like 2 weeks. Then it was a challenge for us because we have to wait until they finish their, mourning and come back to us. So it was not easy. And there was some tension. So the research went longer than expected. And I know that I was blamed sometimes because of that anyway, but when the research was done, when we were reflecting at what happened, I told them that, guys, I think that the job you gave me was impossible. I said that, look, what you asked me to do is to take a racing car with a tractor and to bring them at the same speed from A to B. And I said that I could push the way you wanted the tractor, it was impossible to work like that's a racing car. So what I did, I slowed down the racing car. And they said that that's why I'm not happy. But I said that at the end of the day, we are where we are. Now, from there, I kept trying to see how to improve that and how to do that, because I kept working with those guys from University of Finland. But I think that it's when in 2019, when we met in Bogota, that the things I had in my head, the things I could not say how to do them, that you guys will help me to have the vocabulary to use. And then since then, I have been working in that area. I still working today in that, and it's a beautiful, really beautiful job to do. Because I feel that being a bridge between universities and the communities is something very, very good that have been done, because you voiceless people, they may not talk because they don't talk because they have nothing to do. It's because they don't have an audience, they don't have the podium. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you very much. People don't talk sometimes because nobody wants to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Before we end the panel, we gathered here. We thought that we will celebrate Bud's life, but also, use this occasion, as Oliver mentioned, to launch a Community Scholars Fund. And the reason we imagine this possibility is because there are a lot of community knowledge workers like yourselves around the world who do not have the kind of access to resources or opportunities that a young researcher in an academic institution would have. Participate in conferences or go for advanced learning or training program or take a field visit to another community, etc. So that's the sort of the idea behind a Community Scholars Fund. And the idea emerged from our work with colleagues like you around the world. So the question I want to hear from you is that what would enable people like you working in the community with community knowledge, in what ways you have felt supported? You gave the story of being in Bogota during the training with us, where your experience was given a vocabulary, as you said. Well, maybe that's all Bud and I do, is produce vocabulary. but it was a way of you connecting your experience to the kind of movement we were part of. So, in what ways you have felt supported? What do you think are ways in which we can create more opportunity for the respectful way of working with community scholars, community knowledge keepers, community knowledge workers? Because only then their contribution with academic scholars and academic knowledge workers would be harmonized in some way. So that's the short response to a long question.
Sure, I had an task. Sorry.
Yeah, Nicole.
What are some of my lived community experiences and how do I connect them with what the Community Scholars Fund is attempting to do? Well, I had the privilege of conducting an evaluation for about 11 countries about a project that had been implemented across 5 to 11 countries of the Horn of Africa. And they all had one thing in common, which is that they were drylands. I come from a dryland. We are about 3.8 billion of us who come from drylands, and we occupy about 22% of the Earth's land surface. So in evaluating this project, I was coming from a place of understanding what it means to live in and to value a dryland. This project was trying to speak to livelihoods, and the reason that it was trying to speak to livelihoods is because one of the continuing outcomes of global climate change in drylands has been drought. They're devastating us. They're killing people. They're killing our livestock. And so the idea here was that across these many countries, these bilateral institutions came together, they pooled money, and they had a research conducted by one of the biggest livestock research institutions in my country. And then they came up with what Chutska earlier had called a supergoat. This supergoat is brilliant by way of production of milk, by way of essentially being able to provide an alternative income and nutrition for people living in drylands. It also has several requirements. If it needs to reproduce, you have to get a vet to do that. If it has to have an elevated space for as its shelter, it needs to see the vet a couple of times during the year, amongst many other requirements. Why are these things important? Because when this goat was sent across some 11 countries and to some multiple community groups, they all died. Highly researched animals, they died, except for one group. Now, this one group, over the course of 5 years, had observed that this goat that had been given, wonderful for milk production, however, it was suffering all types of illnesses from consuming foods that it's not used to, grass that it's not used to. It was developing all types of complications in the mouth, it was developing complications in the feet because of the environment that it found itself in, and also because these are groups that already are at a very disadvantaged level. They cannot afford to build a house, essentially, which is what they were telling me. They're asking us to build a house for a goat. We don't do that where I come from. So then, what they did was they took this super goat that had been given and they began breeding it with one of their own. And over time, they developed a goat that was so resilient, they now became the source of the genetic material that was then used and is currently actually being used to produce other goods for the purposes of, livelihood in these places. Why does this matter for Community Scholars Fund? If that research institution, from the jump, had thought, perhaps we should bring somebody from the dryland to come into this lab and think with us about how to do this, they would have spared themselves about $500 million by way of investment. This is why we need a Community Scholars Fund.
And I guess then we should be able to aim for at least $1 million of this one, no? Thanks, Alfonso, your story, then I'll end with Chuska. Any thoughts you have?
Yes, so
Quick answer.
let's see where to start or where to. So I think that you want think about why it is important to get those people who, the voiceless people, if you want, that now they can be able to speak and to be listened to. I said that I've been in many places, and one of the things I have seen is that in morning and in evening the birds sing beautiful, with different tones, with different that and that. Wherever you go, you find new bands. But can you imagine if there's a group, maybe 2 or 3 birds, who decide that we don't want to hear other voices. We want just our voices because they are better than yours. And another bird who's going to try to sing another song gonna be killed or something else bad happen to him. So now we have our morning and our evening. We don't have that myriad of songs from the bird. We have just 2. It will be boring, isn't it? But that happened to people. From generation, from many years, all of us where we came from, there was wisdom, there was a kind of medicine they were using, there was values, but for some reason, there's a group of people who decide that some knowledge are not good, are backward. So they told us that actually this is better for you. They didn't ask us, they told us. And whoever tried to ask the question why, but you didn't listen to me, they said that close your mouth or something will happen. So now, why is it important to get those people, especially those ones who are from the place where they can talk, to be able to help them to connect with university so that they can, those knowledge they have, they can be on the podium. Because those birds who decide to silence others, they made the world less beautiful, because now we don't have all those songs. But those songs, they are not forgotten completely. Those birds, they don't sing because they know that there's a percussion value there. So if we can find a way of reviving those songs, the way of see whatever is left there, if there's some, we can revive them, we can help them do that, that would be great. And there's a way of doing that, because we know that people are dying with knowledge, but some of people are not dead yet. In Africa, we say that if an old person dies, it's like a library that burned down.
Yeah.
So, if we can do something, it's not tomorrow, it's not after tomorrow, it's just now.
Thank you very much. Chuska.
True. Community knowledge. So one of the things that many of us have in common from around the world is that our knowledge is held within community, within the hearts and minds and spirits of many people, and across many generations within communities as well. Such is the richness of that knowledge. So in pursuing learning within community and the growth of that knowledge, you are learning things that are surprising and enriching all of the time, because it's not stuff that you can access through at least our Canadian education system at this time, because the knowledge systems have been suppressed for so long. There are many things that I, as an adult learner, am becoming more understanding of as a hedge group person, and I feel myself changing in different ways every year that I add to that knowledge, because it's so enriching to a life to be able to reach back to ancestral knowledge, connect it to what's happening now. It's almost always fits in now, and then making sure that this very, very awesome stuff is going to continue into the future. and we're going to have many, like Rajesh's gurus. We're going to have a lot of HM in the future that are really, really knowledgeable throughout their whole lives, from birth to 95 years old. They're going to have access to their language and ways of thinking. They're going to be able to share with their neighbors and around the world our ways of passing on knowledge and ways of communicating with each other, including the manners in which we approach knowledge acquisition. I find that has really changed for me over the years. It could be that because Heishgut so focuses on the joint nature of mind and your inner emotions, that you are always feeling what you are learning. So when you work together in that way, it becomes a really beautiful process that that you feel when you return to your learning space and to your jump for the day that you're approaching. That it becomes a nice change in your life, and some people will call it a decolonizing pathway in your life, or a youth, and you can and it's really exciting, the opportunities that can open up on that pathway when you are working with the knowledge that is held in community. True.
Thank you. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists who have traveled long distances.
I don't know if you've ever looked in the dictionary, but bud is a little axillary protuberance from which life grows. And I think your mom, when she named you, or your dad, whoever named you, were bang on, because you have caused a lot of things to grow in your lifetime. For that, we really benefit. My first experience with Bud was about 2 months into my role as at UVic. I started in November 2020. I think by January, Bud demanded to have a meeting with the new president, and he walks. He's got sheets of paper, graphs, and this is what I'm doing. You know, this is what my group's doing. And Bud, you had me hooked in the first few words that you mentioned. And I just, as I looked at what Bud was presenting, I just thought, this guy's an innovator. He's a navigator. He's really changing the way things are going. And so for us, Bud's been a real gem for the university for a long time. He's been a real gem for community-based research. And in addition to all of that, he's just such a really, really nice guy. Right? We can all say that. He's just such a nice guy. I had the pleasure of going to Barcelona, I can't remember, maybe 2 years ago, when I was there with Rajesh, Lorna, and Bud. And it was just such an amazing experience. Here they were at the World Higher Ed Congress, and they were kind of like Taylor Swift. And there were all these Swifties following them around, listening to them. But you just realize what contributions they have made to education across this planet, because people there were just in awe and in respect of the three of them. And yet they walk around, there's no ego, there's no sort of self-importance. It's just an amazing thing to see, and it was just a really great experience for me. Bud's had about 7 books in all. I understand they're all on the Goodreads list. I'm going to have to buy one, because I must admit I haven't read one. But Bud, you've had a profound impact in the field that you work in. You've had a profound impact on people across the world. And I think you really showed everybody that knowledge itself isn't developed in the halls of academia. Knowledge is in all of us, it's in everyone. And you found the magic key to extract that knowledge, and I think you should be commended for that. And so we can't wait to see what happens in your next 80 years. We're all looking forward to that. I wanted to thank the panel members. Chutska, you really showed us the importance of youth. I think not only just youth, as in, you know, the indigenous word youth for the pathway onto the beach, but in fact putting our trust in youth. So thank you for that. You taught us about the importance of working together and opening that path and creating that pathway. Alphonse, I got to talk to you earlier. Man, you've got a good sense of humor. Alphonse said to me, you know, when you face a wall, look for the windows, don't try to crash through the wall. And I think that's actually really, really good advice for all of us to think about, right? Take a bit of the easy path. But Alphonse, thank you for also telling us about the importance of pace, right? That sometimes it's important to slow down and remember that the community works at a much different pace than we do. So, in my native language, pole pole.
Yeah,
pole pole. Thank you.
Jump window.
Nakatha, thank you for really telling us about the importance of listening and traveling the journey and trying to understand other people's journeys. I think that was really important and cathartic for all of us. And just listening to you three, I think gives us oldies a sense that the world is in pretty good hands if we let it go and let you do what you're meant to do. And so I just wanted to finish with the Community Scholars Fund, and this is a really, really critical piece. I once did a 3-minute pitch, and I got $10 million in venture capital funding. A few weeks ago, I signed off.
Go for it.
I signed off on a 1-page document and got $5 million for a new electric boiler for the university. Yet I've worked hard, as you've all worked hard, to try to get a few $100,000 for the work that's really important to us. And I just think it says that governments, funding agencies really don't put importance on things that really make a difference on a global scale. And so that's why this fund is important. It's not that we can't work hard to try to get bigger funds, and we will try to take this fund and leverage it. But Rajesh has just been very successful with Global Affairs Canada, 500,000 or so, I think it was. Yeah. Getting those really big funds is difficult. So if you can contribute, or people that can contribute to the Community Scholars Fund, it's a really, really worthwhile initiative, as you evidenced by the people on the panel tonight. So with that, I'm going to exit stage left. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Now let me invite the big Trout Lake colleague from 1977-78. He knew Bud before I got to know Bud, but I got to know my dear friend and co-traveler, Dr. Ted Jackson, who has lived in Ottawa and been professor in Carleton, but more importantly, a fellow participatory researcher. Ted, welcome.
This is fabulous, but you probably are all wanting to get ready to dance. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. And so I'll try to be short. I'm already short. I said to Bud that I would do something here, and we came from Ottawa yesterday. If I could tell a couple of jokes.
I didn't say you could.
I know, but I still came. There's one here that even my wife doesn't like, but still. So, Bud has been around a long time, and all of us, you can tell, we've been around a long time. We've seen all kinds of different learning technologies. But the one that Bud loves the most is the dry eraser whiteboard because it's the most remarkable. That's what I'm talking about here. All right. Last year, this is true actually, Bud asked ChatGPT to write a speech for him on participatory research. And it came back instantly, and it was perfectly written, and he was sort of astounded. And he showed it to Darlene. Darlene says, "Honey, this is the best thing you've ever written." True story. So, I'm here your hearts are open, and my job is to open your wallets. Because we got to raise some money for this fund. You heard from the panel why the fund is important. We want people who do this work to have resources to do what they do well. This is very valuable. We have a silent auction going on. But let me say something about Bud, because no, I'm not going to say those things. I know things. After 47 years, I know things. Talk to me after. I was reading some of the people who talk about leadership. Like what is the core of good leadership? And Maya Angelou, who is a wonderful writer and feminist, or was, said something like this, that people will forget about what you said, and people will forget about what you even did, but they won't forget about how you made them feel. And that's what this guy does. That he makes us feel confident. He makes us feel courageous. He makes us feel in motion. And not everybody can do that. I mean, this is an amazing human being here that we're celebrating tonight. So we love you, and thank you for making us feel that we can do things. It's a big deal. Thank you. All right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Stand up.
Happy birthday, dear Bud. Happy birthday to you.
Wow.
Does that work out?
No, but that's the wood, but don't.
All right.
To welcome to the stage and introduce the band for the evening. The Harpoonist and the Canadian All-Stars. Jonas Spring, Jonas, on drums. Roman Tomei on percussion. James Darling on keys on this fancy electric organ up there. Malcolm Simmons, the inevitable, on guitar, and he also does bass guitar. And the fellow with the curly hair in the front is the lead singer with vocals and blues harmonica, Sean the Harpoonist Hall. Gentlemen, we await your music.
Thanks, Dad. Happy birthday. I feel like I'm 12.
Now someone stand,